My daughter knew, and calls him Papi. It angers me that one man could ruin so many lives.
Imagine a Reddit story so brutal, it can't be real. Well, sadly, this one is. This story has it all: heartbreak, blood-bound betrayals, sweet revenge, and even exploding anger issues. Yet nothing prepares you for the multiple hardcore twists. Tell the like button to stop yapping, 'cause it's story time on Royal AI.
I've been stalking these subreddits for a while, and I thought just reading people's stories would help me. Or if I found someone with a similar situation, and I could see how they did it. But I guess my situation is too unique. So here we go. First, let me be clear. I don't care if you think this is fake. I don't care if you want to rip me a new one after I vent. It already happened. I thought I was okay. I thought I moved on. But after last weekend, it all came back. And that anger I had back then just came in. Full force. And even though I'm back home with my fiancée, that anger towards my ex just won't go away. I spent years in anger management for what she did to me. For the situation that she created. Honestly, I thought I was doing okay. Now I know that the hardcore anger I still bear just couldn't leave me. Right now I just turned 39. I was 18 when I met my ex, Mary Soul. During that time, I was a gangbanger with the Latin Kings. I was a member since I was 13, and always in and out of trouble. Mary Soul was a church girl. My grandmother dragged me to Sunday Mass, and when I saw her, to me, it was love at first sight. I asked my cousin, who was a friend of hers, if he could introduce us. But he refused. He didn't want me to mess with her. He didn't want me to ruin her. Have you ever met someone that you wanted to make yourself better to be with? Wanted to be that man who would walk the right path? That was her. When I found out that she was going to church almost every day, I hung out by the steps, talking to her. I always walked her to and from church. She made me feel like I wasn't worthless. One thing led to another and we were dating. And I felt great. For a year and a half I pushed myself away from the gang life, got my GED, became a regular churchgoer, and was thinking about the future. When I got unintentionally pulled back in. I was at a store and ran into someone that I used to have problems with. They were running their mouths and I tried to ignore it. I swear I did. I just let them talk and I walked away, but then out of nowhere, I got jabbed in the shoulder blade and I lost my mind. I beat the shit out of him. I got arrested. And suddenly it was like the stuff I did to make my life better all vanished. Mary Soul was pissed at me. My grandmother kept bringing up my past mistakes. And my cousin was telling me that he knew that I wasn't going to change. My public defender saw me trying to better myself. And by the grace of God, got me off after a month in lockup. Despite being angry with me, Mary Soul did visit me almost daily. A month after I got out, I found out I was going to be a father. And I didn't want my kid to have a dad that was in jail. Or worse. We eloped. I went to a trade school to become a mechanic. And I worked like a crazy person for my future family. When Luna was born, it was almost the worst day of my life. Mary Soul wouldn't stop bleeding. She went into shock and they had to give her a full hysterectomy. She was in the hospital for months. And Luna became my world. I wanted her life to be the best. I wanted to give her the world. When Mary Soul was released, I promised her that our daughter will have a life far better than ours. And for years I kept that promise. I saved enough money to move us to the suburbs, became homeowners. I was Girl Scout leader, if you could believe that. I made sure Luna went to private school, made sure she knew how to defend herself, and always made sure I was the perfect husband. I didn't know my parents. Didn't have a positive male role model in my life, so I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. That's a lie though. I watched television a lot. Those men were my male role models and I learned to mimic them. And the marriage they had. As the years went by, I owned my own garage. My cousin became a pastor. My grandmother was still a pain to deal with. My relationship with my wife was stronger than ever. And I made sure I kept my prison body. But my little princess, Luna hated me. Since she turned 13, she just started hating me. She didn't want me to hug her. Rolled her eyes every time I told her I loved her. Ignored me when I asked her about her day in school. It hurt me and Mary Soul saw it. She told me that she's a teenager. and that I should just let it ride. She will come back to me. For 2 years it was like that. So for her quinceañera, I wanted to go all out. Think big, but double that. For the ones who don't know, it's a traditional Mexican birthday party for a 15-year-old girl. It would be at my grandmother's apartment. Got everything she wanted. But while showing her the preparations, she was disrespectful to me, turning me down while rolling her eyes. Or when I turned on her favorite song and opened my arms. While inviting her for a short trial dance for fun, she snared me off. As some disrespectful people would do towards beggars. First time ever that I felt my old self almost coming out, just to put her in her place. But instead, I kept it in and went to my cousin. Vented my frustration and doubts about being a good father. And he told me to just let her be. He talked about carrying the burdens of a father while he held my hand. And then said a prayer for me. I wanted a slideshow for the father-daughter dance. I got a chunk of the pictures of us together, but I realized I didn't have any recent pictures of us. She didn't want to take any. Not with me at least. The last time I had pictures of her and I smiling with me was on her 13th birthday. And those were on my daughter's broken tablet. I took that old tablet, went to a repair shop and I didn't care the cost. I needed that tablet fixed. 1 day later and $300 lighter. The tech fixed it and I was thankful. But most of all happy. I knew her passcode, but I never bothered invading her privacy. I just wanted those pictures, and when I opened that tablet and looked in the gallery, there they were. My little girl, smiling and happy to be with me. I felt great. I felt so good it gave me goosebumps. Then the instant messages appeared. It was my daughter talking to my wife. It was a long banter that she didn't want me to dance with her, and it did hurt. But like my wife said, she's being a teenager. Then she said something that destroyed me. She texted why she had to do the father-daughter dance with me, since I'm not her father. I felt my heart stopped. I got dizzy, my mouth dried up and I needed to sit down. My wife responded that I raised her, I loved her, and that makes me her father. But Luna responded by saying that my cousin is her father. And she can't wait for her to turn 18. So she could tell me the truth. And she could finally live with her real daddy. That she hated me. That she thanked God every day that I'm not her father. Mary Soul began cussing her out. Saying that it was a mistake for my cousin to tell her the truth. 2 years ago. And the more they talked, the angrier I was getting. My wife lied to me. For 15 years. My cousin, whom I confide my issues about Luna. And my fears about being a bad father. Not only fucked my wife, but had me raise his child. I wanted to hurt them. I felt a mixture of anger, sorrow, grief and desperation. I wanted to scream, cry, and die at the same time. If that makes any sense. I went to a dark place. And so I wouldn't do anything stupid. I told Mary Soul that I needed to focus on work, so I could pay the over-the-top quinceañera. And instead I drove to Manhattan and searched for my old public defender, who wasn't a low-level attorney anymore. He had a nice firm near Midtown East. I walked in without an appointment, but immediately saw him walking by the front desk. He was cheerful to see me and greeted me by my last name. I was surprised that he remembered me. But apparently, I was his first case as a public defender. We sat down and I told him everything. Gave him the tablet, and when he turned it on, the messages just kept coming. Only this time, Luna was talking to my cousin, her real father. And he was telling her to give me a chance, how I was always there for her, but Luna told him that so was he. How it makes sense that they have so much in common. And even called him Papi multiple times in their conversation. And he responded and told her that she was his little girl. We went through our options and he asked me what I want to do. And I told him that I wanted to go full scorched earth. I wanted to poison the well. Let everyone drink of it. He asked me several times if that is what I really wanted. And I nodded. I also told him that everything had to be filed before the birthday party. In 2 weeks. So we spent the next 12 hours on what was needed to be done. And I followed his instructions to the letter. Obsessively so. I secretly placed my business for sale. Called the private school. And told them that I will not be paying for next year. Closed the college accounts. And the savings that I had for Luna. And prepared to place my house for sale online. No one was the wiser. As I said, I followed his instructions perfectly. There was only one thing I deviated from. The day of the quinceañera. Beautiful. The day went off without a hitch. The whole family was there. Luna was smiling, having fun. Not with me, of course, but I dialed myself down a bit. Mary Soul kept asking me if I was okay, and I lied to her. It was hard lying to her. From the moment I met her, I had never lied to her, and during those 2 weeks, I lied every time. When I kissed her, held her, or when I made love to her. It was hard not to scream at her. It was hard not to hate her. She knowingly let me raise another man's child. She slept with my cousin, a man who I saw as my brother, the godfather of my child. The best man when I eloped, my confidant. So forgive me, but the rage was hard to suppress, to say the least. When it was time for the father-daughter dance, I called her with open arms to the center of the stage. She looked annoyed, but walked over. I had the music playing and she looked up at me. And she smiled. And it tore me apart, seeing her smiling at me. For years I wanted to see that smile again. And now I didn't want it. As we dance, I had the slideshow playing, starting with pictures of the two of us together. And towards the end of the song, screenshots of her text messages with her mother and real father. Needless to say, this didn't go too well. Mary Soul looked like she saw a ghost. Luna just kept staring at the large screen. And my cousin just stared at me with fear. I felt Luna's hands stiffen up, trembling. I took 2 steps back. Mary Soul ran to me and told me that she could explain. And I told her that I filed for a divorce. That she could explain it in court. She grabbed my arm, begging me. And I pulled back hard. Locked into her eyes and told her, "Don't dare following me home." I then turned to Luna, told her that I busted my ass to give her the world, and now she doesn't deserve it. I began to walk out, but not before telling my cousin that every time I see him, I'm going to knock him out. And there I knocked him out. Then hysterics sets in and a mass of people flock around me, trying to keep me away from him. But I didn't go any further. I just walked out and went home. The aftermath was harsh. Mary Soul and Luna stayed at my grandmother's apartment. Her family was shocked and disgusted with her. They wanted nothing to do with her. Her father actually apologized to me. I don't know why. He never liked me and let it show, despite turning my life around. The man hated me, but now I was the perfect husband and father? But just a few days prior, I was the former piece of shit? My grandmother came to my place. Once inside, she didn't waste any time. She had the audacity to tell me about the story of Abraham. And how when Abraham came back from battle 3 years later, his wife had a 1-year-old child and he raised him as his own. And how I should be gracious like Abraham. So I told her to get the fuck out of my house. Mary Soul came a few days later, crying as soon as she saw me, telling me that it was an accident. That when I was arrested she was so angry at me. And my cousin was there to console her. And one thing led to another and they had sex. According to her it happened only one time. And she was faithful to me ever since. She was willing to take a lie detector test to prove it. So I asked her how long she knew Luna wasn't mine. And she started crying more. That look she gave me just told me that she knew. From day one. And asked her to leave. She wanted to go to counseling, telling me that I'm overreacting. And we could make it work. It was in the past and I needed to get over it. That I am Luna's father, despite what happened. And I allowed my temper to get the best of me. I must have repeated, "Get over it?" over a dozen times at full volume while grabbing her stuff and tossing it out the door. I called her a lying whore. I told her that I didn't want to see her face ever again. And I told her that this life that I built no longer belongs to her. Before shoving her out the door. A couple of weeks went by and she kept blowing up my phone. Not once Luna tried to reach out to me. Mary Soul was shocked to learn that I sold my business. Even more so, when she learned that I had an open house. She came in screaming, telling the viewers to get out of her house. And pleading with me to seek help. That I was ruining our marriage. That I had no right to sell our home. The home where we raised our child in. Seriously? I told her that this house stinks of all those lies. It's a house where I raised another man's child. I told her to drop the worries and when I sell it, I will give her half to unchain myself. Then ordered her to get out. Before I called the cops. It was a bluff. All she had to do was play the victim and I would have been arrested. But she didn't. She complied. I think she didn't come alone and had her car parked elsewhere because shortly after her visit. About a couple of minutes later, I went to the front door to make sure everything's closed. And there my cousin stood in my house. He came to talk to me, and I knocked him out. Took more blows this time. Dragged him outside. Put him in a stable side position. And closed the door. I refused mediation. Mary Soul wanted to reconcile, but I didn't. I wanted a divorce. And my attorney filed for a fast-track divorce. So in 3 months' time we were in the county courthouse. I barely spoke to anyone during that time. I read horror stories about the court system, especially during divorce proceedings, but I didn't have that. I had a female judge who was very fair. My attorney took care of everything. First, Mary Soul's lawyer tried to talk about my past when I was in a gang. As if my past barred a reason for me to be a terrible husband and father. But my attorney quickly smacked that down. And the judge reprimanded her attorney for trying to shame someone who seemingly turned their life around, as indicated by the facts shown to her. My attorney presented all the evidence and offered a lump sum alimony payment with the pending sales of the house and business. At first Mary Soul kept asking me to reconsider, but I ignored her. And when she finally realized that I'm not budging, she agreed. Yet the real surprise happened when it came to child support. My attorney presented all of the text messages from Luna's conversation with Mary Soul, showing that not only Luna knew that I am not her father, but she cannot wait to be with her real father, saying that she no longer has to live a lie. Mary Soul was completely caught by surprise from this. Then my attorney filed a motion to have my name removed from Luna's birth certificate, have my last name removed, as well as not being responsible for any child support, since all parties agree, as stated by themselves, that my cousin was her father. Mary Soul was shocked by this. She yelled at me, begged me not to do this to Luna, that I am her real father because I raised her. Now I'm going to be honest, as pathetic as I may sound right now, but if Luna didn't act that way towards me, and if she didn't say those things, I would have agreed. There were moments that I wanted to reach out and try to make it work. But then I would look at Luna's continuing text messages to her friends, to her real father and mother, and I refocus on my resolve. Till this day I don't know what hurts the most. Being lied to by a woman who you thought was the love of your life. Or having a child who you tried to make their lives better, to give them the world, just toss you aside like trash. The judge was quiet for a long while, reading page after page of the text messages. In the end, she agreed. I was not financially responsible for Luna, and my name could be removed. My attorney also filed a motion for the courts to go after my cousin, to force him to pay for child support, and a motion to sue my cousin in civil court directly, for all the money I have spent raising Luna. The private schools, dance classes, Girl Scouts, horseback lessons, and every other expense I could prove I paid for. Everything I had ever spent on their child, which sounds astronomical when you backtrack dollars. And after my attorney explained to the judge that my cousin hereby committed fraud, for knowingly allowing me to raise his daughter, pay for his daughter, while not offering any financial support or assistance. It was the Hail Mary of my life, because the damn judge agreed. I didn't bother looking at Mary Soul when the judge made her decision. I didn't bother listening to her as I walked out the courthouse. I didn't care as I heard her cry. Her telling me that she only cheated one time and was faithful ever since. I just didn't care anymore. Just like that, everything felt different. Hurt still, but a weird sense of freedom, or better said, unshackled. A few weeks later my ex called me, shocked and offended that I stopped payments on Luna's private school extracurriculars, and even all of her activities, while also mentioning Luna's phone and Netflix subscriptions. I waited for her to stop talking, then told her to call her baby daddy before hanging up. Couldn't even put my phone down before I got a new caller. It was Luna. First time since this entire ordeal. And she fucking calls me crying that she has to go to public school. That they were forced to move to the old neighborhood and how scary it was. And how she needed us to be a family again. I told her to go to her real father, her real Papi, the man who she truly wanted. He would know exactly what to do. But she should go and ask him. I then yelled at her, told her that not only she knew for years, but I read all the text messages, the back and forth, and from her own words. She was thankful that a hoodrat like me wasn't her father, even though I haven't been a hoodlum since the day I found out I was going to be a father. I hung up on her after that. I went to a dark place shortly. Thought about ending it countless times. Thought about firstly making my cousin join me, but I made him pay already. He had to pay me over $500,000. $500,000 that was all mine. And not 1 cent belonged to my ex because she agreed on the lump sum. I didn't care that the money came from the church. I was hurting. It brightened up my thoughts, helped those dark thoughts go away. I left New York shortly after, went to Idaho, as furthest away from New York as possible. I just picked a random state and city and left. Opened up a new shop, got a house, but for 2 years I had trust issues. For 2 years, I saw a therapist, had intensive anger management. I went to rage rooms. It was difficult. I knew I needed it, but those sessions proved it even more. Until I found myself going back to church, and ironically, that was where I met my fiancée. Jocelyn is wonderful. She just turned 30 at the time and we just hit it off. I told her everything that happened to me. I explained to her that I'm going to have trust issues. And she understood. A year later, she told me that I was going to be a dad and insisted for me to have a DNA test. Just so I can have peace of mind. I forgot what it felt like to be happy again, and when my son was born, I was overjoyed. I called my grandmother for the first time in years. She cried, and when I told her about my son, she insisted that I come to New York so she could meet her great-grandchild. Guilt-tripping me by saying that she's 90 now. And it's her wish to see me one more time, and I agreed. We flew to New York, rented a car and drove there. The one thing I dislike about the hood. You only need to see one person from your past, and the whole neighborhood knows that you're back. My grandmother saw my son, met my fiancée, made an offshoot comment in Spanish about her being really white-skinned. And I just yes ma'am her to sleep. I was planning to spend the week, do the tourist thing for once. It was Jocelyn's first time in her life being in the Big Apple. And I wanted to make it special. Really, nothing works out as planned. Out of absolutely nowhere, I hear my ex shouting my name hysterically from downstairs. I looked down the stairs, and was surprised how fat she got. My grandmother told me in Spanish to talk to her, and Jocelyn agreed. I went downstairs, was awkwardly silent for a minute and felt that anger just came back like a flood. Mary Soul told me that I look good, followed by saying she looks like crap herself. She told me that she missed me, that she never been with another man since the divorce. I ignored her. Until she had the audacity to tell me that I'm a grandfather. And I gave her a look. Apparently Luna got with a decent guy, and got knocked up at 18. Not married though, but he joined the Marines to support them. And apparently her real father wanted nothing to do with her. Just pays the child support and refuses to acknowledge her. He's no longer a pastor and is working at the Banco Popular, 2 blocks over. Then told me that Luna named the baby after me. And it made me feel disgusted. I couldn't stand looking at her. Guess she saw my discomfort and that I was gonna leave. Mary Soul asked me to wait, because Luna was on her way over right now to see me. And I just walked away, back to my grandmother's to tell Jocelyn we're leaving. Once I saw her, I didn't have to tell Jocelyn anything. She just knew it was time and we left. She grabbed my hand and stopped for a moment. She smiled at me. Told me everything was going to be alright. We walked out of the house, and were met by Mary Soul being out of breath. The look on Mary Soul's face when we left the house was insane. She was looking at my fiancé like she was the other woman, caught in the act. And right there Jocelyn, without missing a beat, introduced my son to Mary Soul. Well, she said,
"I would like for you to meet his biological child."
That was a deliberate knife twist, but she knew my pain. Mary Soul bit her lip and refocused her attention towards me, obviously trying to stop me from leaving. Telling me that Luna felt bad about what she did. And that even my new wife would want me to make amends. But I was yet again blinded by rage. We hopped into the car, ignoring Mary Soul's increasingly dramatic pleads, and I was about to drive away. But Jocelyn asked me to extend an olive branch, so I gave her my number, so Luna could call me later, and we left. I was feeling my mind race. And I was getting angrier. I just needed to get out of there, even if I just had to give a number. Whatever. We drove away, and instead of calming down, I could feel my hands tighten on the steering wheel. My heart pumping through my fingers. I just drove around in the streets I recognized. We just drove for a bit. It got better as we talked. At the red light, I looked over at the sidewalk. I saw my cousin eating by the Cuchifrito stand. And I don't know what came over me. I got out the car, ran up to him and started going at it. All out. I saw black. Jocelyn was screaming, telling me to stop, and when I got up we locked our eyes. I could see the fear in her. I turned back to him and spit on him. And we left. That was it. I'm back home. Working, being a dad, and a good fiancé to a beautiful woman. Yet since going back, when I'm alone with my thoughts, the anger comes back. It's something that's so strong. I have to fight my thoughts to remain calm. Also, Luna did text me when I got home. She texted a picture of herself smiling with her son, and telling me that she was sorry for what she did. Yet, I don't know if she's sorry that she missed me, or if she's sorry because the man she wanted to be her father wasn't the man she thought he was. But that text didn't send me into a full-blown rage. Not at all. I'm so confused, and I'm scared to reach out to her. I want to get past this. I want to move on. My family was my everything. My daughter was my world. Even after these years it still hurts. It still makes me angry. But I know I need to move on. But it's hard. I want to reach out to Luna, but I'm so scared. I can pretend to be tough, but this is next level. I have people telling me to let her back in, but all I could think about are those text messages and the lies. The constant lies. I need help and my usual methods are not working. Thank you for reading this. I needed to vent. This helps. Like I mentioned, I don't care if you think this is fake. I really don't give a rat's, but for those that are with me, your help is appreciated. I'm waiting for the mods to approve this. It's been a while and yesterday was Father's Day. Luna tried calling me several times and I looked at the phone. I wanted to answer. I didn't, but all that kept lingering in my mind was those messages. What she said to her mother, to her real father, her friends. So I ignored it. Eventually I listened to her voicemail and she sounded so cheerful. She briefly apologized for her actions. But to me, it didn't sound sincere, just passive. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I can't simply dust that off. She mentioned her son, her finances, and asked me to call her as a simple request. Hearing that, I became infuriated. My grandmother and my fiancé are telling me to give her a chance. But when I asked my grandmother if Luna or Marisol ever asked about me in the 4 years I left, she said Marisol did, constantly, but not Luna. So in my twisted mind, I thought Luna could only want me in her life. For her child to be taken care of? Or maybe she wants to milk me for herself. And it just angers me even more. Even Marisol tried calling me constantly and I'm already thinking about changing my number. So I spent the majority of my Father's Day in the gym hitting the heavy bag. And I have an appointment today with an anger management group. Maybe they can give me an outside opinion. If this ever gets published by the mods, I would like to get your opinion as well. In the meantime, I'm just figuring this out on my own.
Hey OP, I just emailed Luna, then work your way up to a phone call. Slow steps, if you are genuine about extending an olive branch.
I was thinking about that. Jocelyn wanted me to start with texts, since Luna has been trying to call me twice a day now. Yesterday she tried duo chat, always leaving messages. Marisol tried calling again and Jocelyn intervened by basically telling her to learn her place. Caught me off guard. She's usually so timid and wants me to try with them. But she also notices that Marisol is pushing it now. A couple of the guys from the anger management group advised me take baby steps. Short texts and one-word answers because. And I agree with them. The second I send her something, she's gonna blow up my phone. The email option looks like a good place to start. I just need to get past that first hurdle. I would like to start with thanking a previous commenter for his advice on sending an email as a start. I sent a small email to Luna that simply said, "What do you want?" Didn't expect the multi-paragraph response. She started the email profusely apologizing for how she acted. She said when she found out I wasn't her father, she was sad and angry. She confronted her mother, who broke down in front of her. Then made her promise to never tell me, that it would destroy me forever. Since she felt lost, she began to talk to my cousin, her real father, more and more. He told her of my violent past, the things I used to do, things that I kept a secret from her. This made her angrier, bitter even. And the more they spent time together, the more she pulled away from me. She said she felt bad from time to time, But my cousin reinforced her bitterness towards me. The day of the quinceañera, she said while we were dancing, she realized how stupid she was acting. She realized how much I loved her, that my love for her was real. She was on the clouds and saw I was the reason for making sure everything was perfect. Just for her. And then shock. Her messages appeared on screen. She froze in fear. In the days that followed, she was told by my wife's side of the family to give me space, to not call me, ordered her to get over herself and think of me, the most betrayed one. And she listened. She said she was watching her family fall apart because of her, and she couldn't do anything to fix it. She told me she understood why I did what I did. Yet she wanted to reach out. Her grandfather kept telling her that I loved her, that I raised her. And despite what I saw through her messages, I will do the right thing, and she believed him. During the divorce, her mother fell in a dark place. Not talking to her, barely eating, she was just existing. When she found out that my name was removed from her birth certificate, she said she had a panic attack. Her mother told her that they will have to move back to Brooklyn. And when she asked about her life in school, her mother told her, "That was the life your father gave you, and he's not your father anymore." So she called me begging, and I cursed her out, then hanged up. She cried for days. She tried to reach out to my cousin, who pretty much ignored her. She even went to the church and he told her to leave. Called her a mistake. Her mother refused to talk to her, basically locked herself in a room, only leaving to use the bathroom or take a shower. She begged her grandfather to take her to see me, and when they came to Long Island, she learned that I moved. Her grandfather told her that he will talk to my grandmother and find out where I went. For the next 2 years, according to her, it was hell. The entire neighborhood knew what happened to her and her mother. Her now called father avoided her at all cost and tried not to pay child support. It took her grandfather to threaten him to start paying. In the meantime, her mother still didn't talk to her. She was just locked in her room. The few times they did spoke, she called her an ungrateful girl. And she was the reason why she lost the love of her life. Her grandfather had to put her mother in her place by telling her that her infidelity was the reason why she lost the love of her life. As a consequence, her mother locked herself back into the room. So Luna barely stayed home. And that was how she met the father of her child. He worked in the corner bodega. They were the same age, and after a few months of talking, one thing led to another, and she ended up pregnant. Her grandfather was furious, but when her boyfriend insisted that he would marry her, that cooled things down. Luna said her pregnancy was a blessing in disguise. Her mother began talking to her again, and even began leaving the room to be by her side for every checkup. Being a senior in high school while pregnant was cliché, but she made it work. A month before the baby was born, she graduated, and her boyfriend joined the Marines. He wanted to elope before leaving, but she wants a wedding. Her boyfriend had no issues naming his son after me. Apparently, his father was absent, and the fact he was a junior was a reminder that he shared the name of a man who didn't want him. When she heard I was in town, she got a speeding ticket trying to get to my grandmother's apartment. She wanted to see me, wanted to apologize, wanted me to see her son. She just wanted to see me. However, she was late and she cried. When her mother gave her my number, she wanted to call me immediately. But the entire neighborhood was talking on how I beat her father up, so she waited. Her mother was sad to see that I moved on and have a son. Luna was happy to know she had a little brother, but her mother became a little more depressed. I did feel sorry for Mary Soul. After I read the email, I called Mary Soul and asked her if this was true. That she refused to talk to Luna for years, and always blamed Luna for our divorce. She confirmed it, and at first I yelled at her, but I regained my composure when I hear her crying. I told her to move on. Find someone else, but she said no. She told me that I was her husband, and I will always be her husband. It broke my heart a little. I then had my grandmother go see my cousin to plan a phone call between me and him, so I could talk to him, get the following things clear for myself. The second he heard my voice, he began to cry and begged me to forgive him. I just asked him why he didn't man up and be Luna's father, why he poisoned her against me. I believe him to be honest when he said it was envy. He was in love with Mary Soul and I took her from him. I didn't deserve her, a woman like that. When I was arrested, he consoled her, manipulated her. When she was really down once, he saw an opening and took it, one time. But it didn't go well, as it ended with her shoving him off her, and crying louder. But he already, well, you know. When she found out she was pregnant, he knew the baby was his. They both knew. It was supposed to be a secret. Mary Soul took her total hysterectomy as God's punishment for her infidelity and deceit. When Luna turned 13, he was drunk. Seeing my life over the years, and feeling envious, was the one sin he couldn't shake. So he wanted to ruin it. And he did. I told him when we see each other again in hell, I will be his eternal torturer, and hung up on him. Jocelyn was there for me. She told me that everything will be okay. Luna and I talked through email. But I spoke to her on the 4th. She spent over an hour crying while talking to me. I even spoke to her boyfriend, who asked me permission to marry her. I thought it was funny, but honorable. My wedding is next month, and Jocelyn wants me to invite Luna. At the same time, Luna wants me to give her away for her wedding in November. My future father-in-law sat me down and told me that he couldn't grasp my situation, but respected the road I took. Because that awful road saved his little girl, gave him a handsome grandson, and a future son-in-law that he would kill for. That made me laugh. But he told me that I need to let go of the anger and start forgiving, but never forget. He's right. So we gave Luna an invite to my wedding, even offered to pay for the plane ticket. Her boyfriend, or should I say fiancé, said that he will work it off at my garage when they arrive. I kinda like him. As for me giving her away, I don't know yet. Let's see how the wedding happens first. Thank you again for the advice and the few DMs. No one was rude or disrespectful. You guys helped me so much. I'll update if something happens, but for now, I have to get things ready for my wedding next month.
Oh, hey OP, thanks for sharing that update. I'm curious about the influence your cousin had on Luna. Like, how much did your cousin actually help out or had any influence on her life?
Sorry for not responding over the weekend. It's been eventful, but I'll post another update soon. So when I first emailed her, she sent an extremely long one back. I was thinking about posting it, but it's too long. I was so furious reading it, but Jocelyn calmed me down and basically held my hand the whole time. Especially when I confirmed some of the stuff with Mary Soul and cursed her out. Thank God I have Jocelyn in my life. To answer your question, my cousin was the fun uncle always taking her to Coney Island, a Yankee or Knicks game ever since she was 5. I never thought different when they went out, and based on what I read, he became her confidant whenever she was mad at me or her mother. She basically said that my cousin poisoned her mind against me shortly after her 13th birthday. Something that I was able to confirm by calling my cousin directly, who wanted forgiveness above all. But when I got my answers, I hung up on him. It's a long email and I just need to read it a few more times, and possibly call her before updating. I just need to figure some things out.
Man, I am so sorry for you. Oh, truthfully, I would say talk to Luna. Just talk to her, allow her to apologize properly. It seems like to me, you still love that girl. You did raise her, but for now, keep her at arm's length. Please keep us updated.
It's mixed feelings. I do love her still. Deep down she's my little girl, but it hurts so much that for 2 years, she instantly treated me different when she found out that I wasn't her father. For 2 years, she was so disrespectful, so mean, and during the divorce, she didn't reach out to me. Not once. Only when it affected her is when she reached out. And I'm afraid that she's reaching out for the wrong reason. Thank you for your advice. I might do that to get peace of mind.
Royal A.I.
A lot has happened in such a short window. Again, I would like to thank the large number of support within the DMs. Of course there were hate messages, but all I could say to those people, what you would have done and what I did, are two different mindsets. And until you go through the same situation or something similar, don't tell me how I should have felt. Here's the update. Leading up to the wedding I was already on eggshells. Jocelyn was the happiest I've ever seen. My in-laws were freaking due to the number of people that were coming. While all the preparations were happening, I drove to the airport to pick up Luna and her family. In the days leading up to her visit, we spoke a lot. Her mostly crying, apologizing, and me just listening. When she couldn't speak anymore, I was talking to her fiancé, who is more down to earth. When their plane landed, I was nervous. Not for seeing her again, but I was nervous due to my anger issues. I was afraid that I would lose my temper. The second she saw me at the terminal, she ran to me, crying, and for a split second, I saw my daughter when she was 7. It was weird, picturing a child in my mind. She ran screaming "Daddy," and the second she hugged me, she began to cry loudly. It caused many people to look at us. She just kept saying sorry over and over, asking me to forgive her, and I just held her for a long time. She refused to let me go. It took her fiancé and I to convince her to do so. It was as if she felt the second she let go, I was going to vanish. After she composed herself, her fiancé properly introduced himself, and then they introduced me to their child. I won't lie, I did cry. I wasn't angry, but I cried holding this infant. Luna was also the spitting image of her mother when she was 19, which made me wonder about Marisol. During the drive home we talked about her fiancé's boot camp, how he's going to be a career man, how Luna was going to college online to learn accounting, mostly catching up conversation. When we arrived at my house, Jocelyn and her family had a welcoming dinner ready for them. Since we've been together, Jocelyn learned how to cook Mexican and Spanish dishes. But the week leading up to Luna's visit, she went a little overboard. Yet I get it, she wanted to make an impression. Her and Luna just hit it off. Every few minutes Luna would walk towards me just to give me a quick hug, and go back to Jocelyn. I was just holding my son, and my grandson. While Jocelyn was introducing Luna to her family, I put the babies to bed and I went to the porch for some fresh air. Luna's fiancé was standing by foot of the yard, staring at all of the bisons roaming around. For a moment I wanted to give him the dad talk, but I felt that it wasn't my place. Instead, I asked him how he liked the view, and he was awestruck. I know the feeling, living in the city the majority of your life, wide open spaces is a marvel to take in. After a minute or two he looked at me and told me how regretful Luna was.
Sir, I've been with your daughter for 3 years, and not a day goes by when she mentioned how much she misses you and regrets what she did.
Out of everything he told me, that single sentence constantly replays in my mind. Her fiancé's name is Roberto. For a man who is only 19 years old, he acts and talks like a man in his 30s. That tells me he had a rough life to mature so quickly. I know the feeling. The following day, I had to go to the shop and Luna practically jumped in the car with the baby. Even Roberto told her it was okay and to enjoy herself. Luna looked like she was going to hyperventilate. And I told her that we'll work a half day and I'll spend the rest of the day with her. That seemed to do it. And I slowly began to realize how traumatized Luna was. During the drive I asked Roberto how bad his was. He tells me she has severe abandonment issues. Constantly. She's afraid that he's going to leave her, despite him telling her that he will never. She calls him a lot, a bit clingy at times, and in the beginning, afraid to be herself, in fear that he would break up with her. She always looks for approval, or wants to make sure others are looked after. He had to reaffirm his love for her, just so she could let her guard down a little. This was my doing. I know that, but he doesn't blame me. He told me he completely understood why I did what I did. Allow me to say that Roberto is a terrible mechanic. He knows nothing about cars, so I had him clean up to the shop so he could work off the plane tickets. We closed early and when we arrived, Luna practically ran towards me. She looked unhinged. I told her that I'll be back later and she went over to her fiancé. When I walked into my house, Jocelyn took me aside. She noticed Luna is very tensed up and insecure, and asked me to remind Luna that everything is going to be fine. That I won't leave her again. I didn't know what to say, but Jocelyn grabbed my hands and told me that Luna is hurting, and she needs her father. For the next couple of days, I spent most of my time with Luna, getting reacquainted with her. I took her to my in-laws' ranch and showed her the bisons and the elks, also took her on a hike. 2 days before the wedding, I apologized to her for leaving. I apologized for the way I acted and for the actions I took. She didn't want to hear none of it. She told me that there's nothing that I should apologize for. She said she knows she was the reason why it all fell apart. That she knows it was her fault and I had to stop her. I began to shed tears because it hurt me to hear her say and believe that. I told her that it wasn't her fault. I was angry, I was hurting, and despite what happened, I should be the one who should apologize. We both cried and just held each other. Luna appeared to be doing slightly better and less worried. On the actual day of my wedding she was happy. In the last minute, Jocelyn made her into a bridesmaid and Roberto a groomsman. The wedding was beautiful. During the reception I asked the DJ to play the song from Luna's quinceañera and I asked her to dance with me. It was a bold move, but it felt right and I thought it over many times before. She was crying the entire time, holding on to me as we danced. I haven't felt this happy in a long time. I let Luna and her fiancé stay in my house, taking care of her little brother while I went to Hawaii for my honeymoon. Some of Jocelyn's family member came over to help a hand and stay, but Luna and Roberto stayed consistently. When we got home, back from our honeymoon, she was happy and thankful. She was happy to see us back, and I can honestly say that it felt great. At home, Roberto told me that he's going to Afghanistan, and would like to know if Luna could stay near us. He would pay for an apartment near us, until he could buy a house. Of course I said yes. They went back to the city the day before yesterday. Like I said, it's been eventful. Luna's wedding is in November and Roberto is leaving in December. Roberto sent me what constitutes as a year's rent for a townhouse community, 3 miles away from my house. However, Jocelyn suggests we should put a double wide on our property for Luna, and let her save her money to buy a house when Roberto comes back. There's another side to all the positive changes though. Mary Soul has been blowing up my phone and based on the messages she left, she's not happy that Luna is moving. Right now, my focus is my family, and to mend my relationship with my daughter.
This is worthy of a movie. Honestly, sir, if you can pitch this to a miniseries for a Spanish novella, I think it would be a hit. Thank you for sharing this. It's without a doubt the best story I've ever heard. I can, somewhat, relate, because I too had a rough childhood. Nowhere near as rough as yours, though. I'm from New York City and grew up in Sunset Park, where drama like this is unfortunately common. My father was constantly in jail for selling drugs and burglary, so I never knew him well. I remember only 6 months with him when I was 8. Then he got arrested in front of me and went right back in jail, with me in tow for most of them. Then he died of hepatitis when I was 10. I never learned how to be a man and was a little prick for years. However, when I turned 23, I joined the Navy. I left 3 years ago, and now I live on my own, have my dream car, 2002 Toyota Celica GTS, and work a great job. However, I still think about how my father could have been better because he was a master DJ, back when DJs actually used turntables, getting paid $500 a night to play at clubs. I harbor resentment for his poor decisions and what it did to my mother and sister. Earlier this year, I visited his grave after 20 years and just said, "I win, Dad. I'm here and you're not. I'm here for my family, but you aren't. I hope you're proud I didn't make the mistakes you did."
I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sure your father loved you and did what he had to do in order to try to support you. I knew a lot of men, talented men who couldn't find work due to their background, but chose the wrong path just to put food on the table. I'm not condoning what he did, but I can promise you, he is proud of you.
Holy crap. I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that, and I'm glad you got out of there.
Thank you. In a way, I'm glad too, but the anger is overwhelming at times. I think what bothers me the most was the lies. The constant lies and then being told to get over it, time and time again. I'm grateful for Jocelyn. She has been an open book for me. She makes sure everything is open and honest. She even tells me that she will be willing to do a lie detector test anytime I want to. Her family is very sympathetic as well. Personally, I think they are thankful that I am in their daughter's life. She had a bad boyfriend before me, one that was abusive. I remember when we first started dating, he tried to scare me off. It didn't end well for him. Thing is, he didn't know I was crazier than him. But I'm good for Jocelyn though. I really am.
This story is so sincere. Completely respect the decisions made, and you stuck by your guns. Mistakes happen, but it's often how we react and are able to mend past wounds that often define a better future. I wish the best for you and your daughter, and hope to read about a mended bond in future updates. Though there will be countless obstacles, it's not blood that defines family, it is who we choose. Also, please tell your son-in-law to be careful and keep his head on a swivel. I have fellow brothers in arms that may be heading that way. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Although you have walked a tough path, I'm happy that you have a positive outcome. I wish I had a father like you, but unfortunately, my father is kind of like your cousin. He wanted nothing to do with me, and that's fine, because I came out great and he's missing out. I'm also glad that you were able to work things out with Luna. I know it was hard after everything that had happened, but at the end of the day, Luna's anger was fueled by her mother putting the responsibility of her secret on her shoulders, and your cousin manipulating Luna against you. I do feel bad for Marisol, but sadly, not as bad as I feel for you and Luna. She knew what she did and lied about it for a long time, yet still had the gall to blame Luna for her divorce. She acknowledged that her infidelity was the reason you are leaving, yet somehow twisted the narrative that Luna, being ungrateful, is to blame. Ugh, wow. I'm sorry, but only a coward does that. As for your cousin, I hope he's able to sleep at night after everything he has done, to manipulate both Marisol and Luna for his own personal gain, and having the gall to call Luna a mistake is a joke. I too hope that you become his eternal torturer, but I also hope that your good deeds earn you a place in heaven. I'm glad you found someone like Jocelyn. I know her wanting you to make amends was a way for you to let go of the anger. She means well, and she brings you happiness and peace of mind, and that makes me happy. Sorry I'm rambling, so much to take in. Anyway, I'm happy for you, and I hope there's more good news going on with you and your family. I'm curious to what Marisol plans are now Luna left, but I'm sure that's for her to figure out.
I also find it funny that many people in my DMs keep telling me that Jocelyn and Luna are only after me for my money. So I learned of the medication she was taking and a lot of other things. That hurt my heart. She's on her honeymoon right now, and will be back on Saturday. I was thinking about writing another update about the wedding. It was semi-drama free. I've been at peace since having her back. And Roberto noticed how better she is doing as well. I also found out this week that I'm going to be a dad again. And it feels great. I also found out this week that I'm going to be a dad again. When it comes to Jocelyn, her family owns a bison ranch, as well as several other businesses. She doesn't need my money. Luna, right now she tells me that she just wants me to be her father. Thank you. Luna and I have been going to therapy together. Marisol is not well. She was admitted into a psychiatric hospital. But I'll go into that in the next update. Her father, God bless him, was at the wedding and we mended bridges. Like I said, I might need to write another update soon. Please be patient. First, I would like to thank everyone for the positive feedback and support in the comments and DMs. Also, apologies for the delay in the update. I waited for Luna to come back from her honeymoon so I can show her this post. Our therapist wanted us to have full transparency when it comes to this situation. I wanted to make sure she knows it's only fair since this is also about her. She read the post, but I refused to let her see any of the hateful comments, considering how much she was crying from the post. Yet she had no issues with me posting an update. Then a tragedy happened, with the passing of my grandmother, and I had to place it on hold. So let's begin with where I left off. Jocelyn and I managed to get a double wide on our property and had everything ready for Luna and Roberto. Many people wondered why Jocelyn kept pushing to make peace in the beginning. Jocelyn didn't want my lingering anger to affect our family, and wanted me to make peace with myself, for our family's sake. I am grateful for that. As I mentioned before, Marisol was constantly calling me, and the day Luna left New York I spoke to her. She was crying and angry with me, telling me that I took her child and grandchild from her. I tried to explain to her that I want to rebuild my relationship with Luna. And almost immediately she began asking me about rebuilding my relationship with her. I had to tell her that I couldn't, which caused her to yell and she hung up on me. Luna and Roberto loved the trailer, and the first thing Roberto did was starting the process to repay me. I told him that it wasn't needed, but he insisted and I appreciated it. A few days later Luna and I had our first therapy session, and I learned of all the anxiety medication she was taking. And I learned that she suffered from chronic panic attacks. One thing I can share about our sessions is that Luna is very remorseful, and she suffered from years of verbal abuse from Marisol. There was things that shocked me. Some things that I found to be unbelievable, but was confirmed when I spoke to my former father-in-law. Marisol verbally and emotionally abused her. My cousin mentally destroyed her. And despite what my feelings were and the actions I took, I know I hurt her too. 2 weeks after they arrived, Roberto received news that he was being deployed sooner. So they had to move their wedding up. At first Luna wanted to wait for him to come home, but Roberto insisted. He wanted them to be married before he left. Jocelyn and I offered to help pay for the wedding, but Luna told me she only wanted me to walk her down the aisle and give her away. I know people kept telling me to get a DNA test because there wasn't one from the court, due to the circumstantial evidence that was provided. Allow me to tell you, there's no need for that. Luna is O positive. I may be negative. Marisol is B positive, and my cousin is O positive. However, despite what happened, Luna is my daughter. I only wished I wasn't blinded with rage. Anyway, the wedding had to be small since it was being done on my in-laws' ranch. My former father-in-law, Roberto's mother, Marisol, and my grandmother were invited. Only 2 RSVP'd. My grandmother couldn't come because she wasn't feeling well. And Marisol was admitted in a hospital for trying to hurt herself. Luna didn't take the news well, and I was angry at Marisol because she expected Luna to come back to New York to help take care of her. On the weeks leading up to the wedding, I learned I was going to be a father again, and I was ecstatic. Roberto learned the hard way about breaking a horse, and I began teaching him how to fix cars. Again, I like this kid. The day before the wedding, my former father-in-law arrived at the same time as Roberto's mother. His mother is a very kind person, and I commended her for raising a fine young man. My former father-in-law was stoic as always, but we spoke. He told me that he was disappointed that I left, but given the circumstances he understood. He only wished that his daughter would move on as well. On the day of the wedding, Jocelyn was Luna's maid of honor. And I tried my best not to cry as I walked her down, but it was difficult. It was even more difficult for her. During the reception we played the quinceañera song again for our father-daughter dance. And again, she just held on to me. For those who wanted to know the song, it's Cinderella by Stephen Curtis Chapman. During their honeymoon things were getting back to normal. And I was planning to write this update. But a few days before they came home, my grandmother passed. This hurt me because she wasn't just my grandmother, but my mother. As I mentioned, I never knew my parents. Both my mother and father passed away alongside my cousin's parents when I was a few months old from a car accident, and she raised us together. So while preparing to go to New York for the funeral, I was trying to control myself and prepare to face my cousin. We went as a family to New York. My grandmother was laid to rest in the Cypress Hill Cemetery. Yet during the funeral, with my wife, daughter, and son-in-law beside me, I wasn't angry. I didn't bother to acknowledge my cousin during the funeral, and as we left, my cousin kept trying to talk to me, practically begging for me to yell at him or to hit him. And for some reason, me ignoring him just hurt him even more. A few days before we went back home, Luna and I visited Marisol in the hospital. She was excited to see us, but sad that she missed the wedding. Conversation was cordial, unexpectedly turned out to be a pleasant visit. We thought everything was fine until, of course, when we had to leave. She began to cry. Pressed the help button, telling the attendant that she wanted to go home with her husband. The attendant looked confused and Marisol begins to beg me to go home together, repeating to just take her home, saying that I am the love of her life and to please just take her home already. It was sad to see her like this, and we watched as the hospital attendants took her away. Luna broke down as well, and it took a while before either of us had the strength to leave the visitors' lounge. My former father-in-law told us that Marisol was never the same after the divorce. She still celebrated my birthday and our anniversary, and he would argue with her to move forward, but she never did. He said she isolated herself and was verbally abusive towards Luna for a long time. Luna's pregnancy just took her out of the trance. He said that the 13 months of being nice to our daughter doesn't take away from the 4 years of negligence and abuse she has done to her. He hopes the hospital will help her. Jocelyn told me that I will have to forgive her, so she could forgive herself. Right now as I'm typing, things are okay. Jocelyn and I are as thick as thieves. Roberto left for deployment again last week, and Luna is trying to appear strong with him gone, but she's doing it poorly. She has been clinging on to me and Jocelyn. I thought Jocelyn might be bothered by this, but she has been loving spending time with her. She is indeed a wonderful woman. She has been taking Luna all across town, introducing her as her daughter. I thought it might bother Luna, but she was very happy about it. For the ones who care to know, I forgave Mary Soul, and I hope she could find the strength to move on. Before I begin, I would to thank all of you, even the haters and the doubters. When I posted a year ago, I was in a dark place. I was always angry, lost and depressed. The people here really helped me, and the gratitude that I have for all of you will be with me until the day I die. This community helped me get my daughter back. All of you helped me get my life back. The past year has been great, but not without its ups and downs. I have another son and Jocelyn wants to try for another one. I'm going to have another grandchild. Luna is 2 months pregnant. My son-in-law has applied for officer training school, and I'm hoping he gets in. My daughter has been getting a little better since the therapist started prolonged exposure. For a while her panic attacks went from mild to severe, but that went down. Shout out to that specific Redditor for suggesting exposure therapy, because it has been a blessing. Our therapy sessions together were hard in the beginning. Listening to everything she went through, she owned up to her mistakes and I owned up to mine. My in-laws have her working on the ranch, nothing fancy. Feeding horses, putting out hay, and my mother-in-law has been teaching her on herding bison. It makes me smile when I see her on a horse, her face lights up. She and Jocelyn act like mother and daughter, and seeing how Jocelyn is overprotective of her is adorable. I'm blessed to marry such a wonderful woman. When I met her, as I mentioned, she had just come out of a very abusive relationship. Back then, she had a swollen eye and bruises around her throat, while I volunteered to fix her father's 3 tractors for free, since they were damaged due to her ex pouring salt and sugar in the tanks. At first, I minded my business, but as she brought me food we talked and got to know one another. And a month later we had our first kiss. It was great, took her out to dinner and a few days later, her ex came to see me and tried to scare me off. I put the fear of God into him. Sorry, went off topic there. In the first week of May, my ex-father-in-law passed away and I was afraid that Luna would relapse. But she was strong, thanks to Roberto being there with her. That man had a strong impact on her life and the level of gratitude that I owe him will never be repaid. We all flew to New York and he had his viewing like a true Boricua. He had a live salsa band, an open bar, and a buffet with pateles, pernil, sancocho, with all of his favorite foods there for all to chow down. Do not mourn me, celebrate me. That was the banner over his casket, draped with the Puerto Rican flag, and he was wearing his vanilla ice cream suit. I couldn't help but smile many times. Mary Soul was there, but she was just staring into nothing. It was like her brain shut off, only to turn back on when Luna or I sat next to her. And she began talking about preparing for Luna's quinceañera. After a while she realized where she was, and her brain shuts off again. Her therapist told us during the second day of the viewing that her mind is stuck in a moment she was at her happiest. When Luna walked away, the therapist took me aside and told me that, in her professional opinion, she believed my cousin may have graped Mary Soul, and her mind protected her from that trauma. She rationalized it, made herself believe it was a moment of weakness. That messed me up, and I told Jocelyn what the therapist said, and she was shocked. She insisted that I should tell Luna, but I was afraid too. She made so many steps to get better, I didn't want her to revert back. Instead, we told Roberto first, who wanted to go and find my cousin. But I talked him down and then we sat as a family and spoke to Luna. It was a bad night. A really bad night. We had an incident at the burial 2 days later. My cousin showed up uninvited and caused a scene. He was drunk, and I wanted to end him, I believe is the proper term. Instead, I told him to leave. Roberto was holding me back, and my cousin began shouting that he was always better than me, and always will be, and it was because of him and his daughter that I made my life better. So in a way, he's responsible for me bettering myself. I got angry, and I practically lifted Roberto off the ground to get him, but Luna punched him in the mouth and began pummeling him. She was screaming and crying. She was so angry while attacking him. I briefly hesitated because of the sight, and Roberto pulled her off of him. As he was getting up, Jocelyn punched him and knocked him out, breaking her index finger in the process. Before we went back home, we had a family meeting about Marisol. We all agreed that we would transfer Marisol into a mental facility near us, since she has no one else. We are still going to therapy, and with this new realization, my daughter is trying to cope with the fact that she might be a product of, Before this happened, I was planning to adopt her, since legally she's no longer my daughter. I want to make it official again, but I feel like the timing might not be right. I will answer any questions. I owe this community a lot, and God bless you all.
Take one day at a time, OP. I am so happy that you are doing well with your wife and your daughter. I do believe that in time it will heal all the wounds in the past between you, your daughter, and hopefully your ex-wife. I gotta ask, how is your ex-wife so far after moving closer to you guys? Is she still trying to get you back or not? Ugh. Also, I never thought that your cousin could have done that to your ex-wife. What makes you think that's true? Overall, I am glad you and your family are doing well. As always, take care. On the adopting your daughter, you should tell her when the time is right. Be there for her, and I think she will be very happy to know that.
The therapist stated that the way she described that night was a clear indication that he forced himself onto her. Since transferring her, the new therapist agrees with the accusation. From how it was explained to us, my cousin came in to pray with her, confessed his feelings, and then did what he did. She's still in and out. Saw her a few times already, and every time it's about the quinceañera, and how her life is perfect. It hurts and angers me that one man could ruin so many lives.
My God, I just hope for her sake and health she gets better. But question, why the quinceañera and how her life is perfect? I'm confused by that, but also for what I am getting. She is no longer trying to get you back or calling you her husband. Also, that horrible person that is called your cousin, he deserves the worst. You are twice the man that he'll ever be. In fact, you are the man that every man should be these days.
Scary thing is that when I talk to her, she tries to kiss me without any doubt, and looks at me with so much love and happiness. I can see it in her eyes. It feels real to her. When she had her massive breakdown, telling me that she wanted to go home with me, in her mind, she went to a time when we began planning for the quinceañera, asking me about where are we going for our date night, and reminisce about happier times. After a while she trails off, looks around and gets teary. I can see the pain on her face, and then she loops back to the beginning of the conversation, as if I just came into the room and sat down. It's heartbreaking. Maybe at that time she thought her life was perfect. I can't say for sure.
Wow, that's rough, Hefe. I can't believe this, and at the same time, it all makes so much sense. Marisol repressing that and the subsequent breakdown after it all came out. I'm so glad you stepped up and moved her close. No one would have blamed you if you washed your hands, but you didn't, and I salute, sir. Your growing family has a great example of how a man should act. Keep being the man you want your children and grandchildren to aspire to be. Your son-in-law, Roberto, sounds pretty stand-up too. Getting to qualify for officer candidate school is no small feat. Your cousin, though, really needs to fall balls first into a wood chipper with dull blades. I sure wouldn't think twice about being the one to push either. What made the therapist think that he did that to Marisol, and her brain shut down? In the end, you will never truly know, unfortunately. If it's true, it still doesn't explain why she willingly kept him being Luna's father a secret all those years. The trauma doesn't explain the deception, if that makes any sense. Thank you for updating, and best of luck in the future.
Thank you. This is a difficult road, but we'll get through it. Last Tuesday, I sat through a hypnotherapy session and listened to what happened that night. I'm not going through the horrific details, but yes, it happened. There's no doubt about it. She kept it a secret in fear that I would end him and get locked up again. So she lied to herself, and she chose to believe that lie. When my cousin decided to become a pastor, shortly after I got out, she saw it as him trying to redeem himself. She believed that lie. It made me cry because I destroyed everything. And she was suffering this entire time. Jocelyn told me it's okay to feel guilty, but it feels worse than that.
My question is, how has your relationship with God changed through all of this? From leaving the gang life, all this that happened, your anger issues, and to where you are now?
My relationship with God is stronger than ever. Yes, when the situation with Luna happened, I turned my back on God. I was angry and lost. I tried to deal with it in my own way. I used to love walking into different churches, looking at the architecture and taking in the awe. One day I popped a tire, and while I was changing it, I was cussing up a storm and I heard a hymn. It was coming from the Lutheran church across the street, and I was compelled to go in, sit, and listened. Maybe it was divine intervention, or maybe I just wanted a sense of familiarity, but I found God again on that day.
Royal A.I.
Hello everyone. It's been a while, and I would like to express my gratitude to all of you. My family continues to grow. I have 2 grandchildren, a boy and a girl. 2 sons and another daughter on the way. For a while I was guilt-stricken, being a bit depressed after what happened in Mary Soul's hypnotherapy session. Some details I'm willing to share now. So it appeared that she said no twice, before freezing up for over a minute. She begged him to stop, which was when my cousin was done and stopped. At the session, that's when Mary Soul rolled to her side and kept repeating over and over that it was a mistake. And she convinced herself that it was a mistake. That truly impacted me. It caused this cloud of depression to hover over me. I blamed myself. I blamed my cousin. I began playing scenarios in my head, focusing on the could've, would've, should've, and it hit so hard. I told myself that my cousin was right. I did ruin her. I struggled to remember every family interaction, to see if there were any signs, anything that would have indicated that he did something to her. And there was. Whenever he was in the house, she was never in the same room with him, or alone with him. I never noticed it, but now, everything is so vivid. Hindsight really is a bitch. Over the next few months, Luna and I sat in a family therapy session with Mary Soul. Like many of you, the therapist also asked me what I would have done if Mary Soul told me the truth when I got out. Honestly, I would have taken him out. If she would have told me years later, I would have kept throwing fists by an inch of his life. Finally, I was asked if she would have told me during the quinceañera. I said I wouldn't believe her at first. However, I would have asked, poked, prodded, and eventually found out the truth. The way I was feeling back then, I would have sent my cousin to the hospital. But I'm sure I wouldn't have skipped town. I believe that things would have been dramatically different. Eventually, Mary Soul became consolable. She cried and apologized to both of us. As time went on, Mary Soul confessed that since she couldn't give me another child, she focused on being the best wife and partner she could be. And when I left, she admitted that when she looked at our daughter, all she saw was my cousin. I asked her why she allowed my cousin to still come to our home. She said that in a way, he was my brother. I was always so proud of him, especially when he became a pastor. I spoke very highly of him. I always went to him for advice, and in her mind, she saw him as a man who made a mistake. A brief moment of mistake that wouldn't go away. So she avoided him at every turn. Luna's panic attacks came back, a bit more aggressive, but now she's doing well again. I officially adopted her last month. It was my birthday gift to her. She couldn't stop crying. She looked so happy. From what I heard, my cousin moved to Puerto Rico after getting fired. The bank had to let him go, due to the vast number of people walking into the bank and making a scene. We placed a new trailer next to Luna for Mary Soul. She was released in mid-March, and at first it was awkward. Extremely awkward. I used to watch TV shows with scenarios like this. Having your ex-wife and current wife near one another. On TV they're friendly, that's television. Jocelyn was very civil, but made clear boundaries for Mary Soul to follow. However, Mary Soul told us that she doesn't want to stay on our property. She wants to stay near us, but all she wants is to be a mother and grandmother. She wants her and me to be friends, mostly distant friends. And I could respect that. A few times Jocelyn and Mary Soul butted heads, mostly on child-rearing and cooking habits. My in-laws, like me, felt awkward about the entire situation. And it's not helping that my brother-in-law, Jocelyn's brother, is a bit smitten with Mary Soul. To the point that Jocelyn smacked him in the back of his head, so she could knock some sense into him. It didn't work. The man is 2 years older than me, a widower of 2 years with 3 little girls. He's a really nice guy, a great wrangler, and he's been around my property more than I could care for. Just so he could try to talk to Marisol. I don't mind, but Jocelyn does. She's very overprotective of her big brother. And she feels that if the two of them do get together, she wouldn't know if it was genuine. I could respect that. There was an incident on Luna's birthday, shortly after giving her the adoption papers. I danced with Luna, and then with Jocelyn. It was beautiful. But when Marisol tried to dance with me, after dancing with Roberto and Jocelyn's brother, I respectfully declined, but it still enacted Jocelyn's green-eyed monster. And she became a bit territorial. On Easter, we were watching the kids hunting eggs and I overheard Marisol tell Jocelyn that she envied her. She was able to give me children. Jocelyn told her that Luna is my daughter, despite the circumstances. Luna was mine and she should always remember that. Marisol cried. It was the first time I saw them getting along. This is where I'm at right now. Hopefully, everything balances out.
Well, thank you for the update, OP. I'm glad to hear that Marisol has recovered and been released. Sounds like she's able to communicate again, and basically function normally. I'm very proud of you for stepping up and adopting Luna. Your relationship with Luna is heartfelt and genuine. I'm sure it's been awkward with having Marisol on the property. I'm very impressed by Jocelyn's caring nature and open heart. The way she helped you heal after you relocated. The way she opened her heart and home up to Luna, and even allowed Marisol to stay on the property was amazing. Jocelyn was a godsend to you. It must be hard for her too. I can understand Jocelyn wanting to keep clear boundaries with Marisol and you. I'm sure she has insecurities that an old flame could rekindle. It is best to keep no physical contact between you two. Congratulations on your expanding family. I wish nothing but the best for all of you. I'm sorry for all the trauma and pain everyone has suffered, but I believe everything happens for a reason. Just be thankful for the blessings that this life has offered you. Godspeed.
Thank you. Yes, I agree everything happens for a reason, but at the same time, I learned how much destruction a single person can cause. As for Old Flame, that's never going to happen. I love Jocelyn way too much. She's my ride or die.
Exactly. A single person could probably end the world, but a single person can save the world as well. But destroying is easy. Creating is hard. I read your story today for the first time, and what a story it is. Sir, you should be proud of yourself and most of all happy. What you have accomplished is a rare feat. We can only somewhat relate what you went through, but only you yourself know how much hurt and pain you went through, and how hard the road has been so far, to get to this place that you are today. I feel genuine happiness when I read your last posts, because so many stories here have a sad ending. And I hope you are happy as well. Please forgive yourself for the past and those around you. I guess you have forgiven the people around you, but I feel that you have not forgiven yourself yet. The hardest part about forgiveness is to forgive oneself. Stop thinking about your cousin. He is a small and miserable man. That kind of man will find no solace in this life or the next. The only thing that will give him pleasure is knowing that he is still on your mind. Please don't give him that. Hug Luna and your other kids as well as grandkids, and feel the gratitude of life. You have been dealt a crap hand in life and a lot of pain and hardship, but you have overcome it all and still remained a God-fearing man, a good father, and a great husband. Most of all, you have not lost your faith, as usually. That is the first thing that goes when faced with real and genuine pain and hardship. Best of luck to you and your family, and thank you for sharing your story and updating it. Sure bet that your story has touched many that read it, as it did myself.
Nice to hear from you, and with how things have been, congratulations on the kiddos and grandkids. Keep winning at it and making a beautiful life with the family. All will be well in God's name. My prayers are with Marisol. Your cousin is a real evil hypocrite.
I agree. He is a piece of shit. I received a letter from him when he moved, but I haven't opened it. Jocelyn wants me to read it out loud in my anger management group, but I'm thinking about just burning it. The last thing I need is more of his poison.
Oh man, you are a great person. No matter what you did when you were young, I'm sorry, about what happened since the quinceañera. But God never leaves his children alone. I have to say that I cried while reading all your posts, and also I admire you, good sir. I send you a big hug, and I will pray for you and your family. God bless you.
Thank you. I believe that God saved me from myself when I left New York. I lost all hope, my faith, and my family. That first 2 years were my darkest days, and all it took was a flat tire, a hymn within a Lutheran church to restart my path, and the people here on Reddit that helped me reconnect with my daughter and learn the truth. I am so grateful to the people here. They helped me get my daughter back, and words cannot express my gratitude. Healing takes time and patience. Healing takes understanding. It also helps when there's a support system. Mine is my wife. Watching her with my daughter, the way she's there for her, and lately, the way she's there for my ex-wife. Taking her to the survivor group meeting every week amazes me with how blessed I am. I sat her down and thanked her for everything she has done. I told her how lucky I am to be with her, and she gave me a wide smile before kissing me. She tells me that I saved her as well, reminding me about her ex and how trapped she was. Then telling me her being there for me and my family was the least she could do. We sat watching Netflix while holding each other, and that was when I got a text message from my cousin. I quickly blocked him. A week later, I get a letter from him and I burned it. Another week went by, and my wife tells me that her brother is heavily interested in asking Marisol out. As I said in previous update, I personally do not care. But I told her that Marisol is a grown adult who is healing from a lot of trauma. And if he understands that and is willing to be patient, then I have no issues. A day later I get another letter from my cousin. And once again, I burned it. Normally I would complain about how he found me, but I am named after my great-grandfather, whose name is extremely unique and my last name is not that common. So finding me with a simple Google search wasn't that difficult. In mid-June, we were enjoying a bonfire. I smiled at my daughter and son-in-law slow dancing to no music. My wife had her head resting on my chest, and I noticed my brother-in-law and Marisol kissing, and I smiled. A few days later, my cousin tried to reach out to Luna on Facebook, and she had a panic attack. Roberto blocked him and consoled Luna, trying to ease the situation. Same day, literally that same day, Jocelyn and I went to the supermarket. While we were minding our groceries, Jocelyn's ex stood there and walked towards us. So guess he's back in town now? He had no groceries on him, and he straight up walked toward us, had the nerve to try to talk to her. I could see the fear in her eyes, and I just reacted. It was a single punch, but I made sure it spoke volume. My wife, my rock, my support was a quaking mess. The way she was shaking and terrified made me want to pounce on him. Coincidentally, the sheriff was in the supermarket and intervened by telling him to leave, before checking on Jocelyn. In the years we've been together, I've never seen her so terrified. While the sheriff was talking to us, I watched her ex walking past the window, and the bastard was smiling at me. The sheriff noticed and firmly grabbed my arm, telling me to take Jocelyn home. We were lucky as the sheriff knew Jocelyn, and of her ex's situation. During that drive she was quiet, and when we got home, all she wanted was for me to hold her and don't let go. Luna was concerned hearing what happened, and Jocelyn grabbed her as well and pulled her into the hug. None of us had ever seen her like this, and all I wanted to do was protect her. Later that day, her brother showed up and told us that he and the sheriff paid her ex a visit and told him to leave. Well, that didn't work. That man showed up at my shop the next day, threatening to sue me for assault. I just smiled at him, while wiping a dirty wrench. He wasn't gonna surprise me, and if he was serious about suing, he would have acted differently at the supermarket. I told him. In the 10 minutes he was yapping his mouth, I came up with a half dozen ways to make him disappear. That shut him up and he left without saying anything. But for the next week and a half, he kept testing me. Testing us, my family. That entire time Jocelyn was constantly afraid, thinking he might do something to her. To me. Stating it's a serious threat, showing he wants to get me first, so he could get to her easily after. Her brother is a game warden, and warned him again to stay away, again. I don't know exactly how or what was said, but the ex reported him to his supervisor. From time to time I saw him wandering about, far away, yet close enough to know it's intentional. Every time I wanted to approach him, Jocelyn begged me not to. However, she's my wife and I needed to protect her, but I told her that I wouldn't. Then her father heard that the ex was probably planning to stay. So he thought it was time to tell me everything about that man. So he did, with my brother-in-law present. Told me everything he did to her. I told him that I was surprised that he never got rid of him. And he said around the time he was seriously contemplating it. But the jock got his kneecaps broken. And he left town. So problem solved. He was smiling wide at me. And I couldn't help but smile back. On the 29th, we were preparing for the upcoming Western Idaho Fair, when I got another letter from my cousin. This time, as it was more convenient at that moment, I left it on my desk. Mary Soul approached me, asking me if it was okay for her to pursue a relationship with Jocelyn's brother. And I told her it was, but only if she feels that she was ready. She shrugged, telling me that she doesn't know what she wanted. But she does like him, and thought about him and his kids a lot. I told her I want her to find happiness. And she began to cry, but they were happy tears and I was happy for her. Then I got interrupted as my phone rang. It was the sheriff. Jocelyn's ex and another man are in the hospital. His face is practically smashed in, and the other man had 2 broken eye sockets. I was preparing for him to accuse me, but then he told me that he had my son-in-law in holding. The sheriff said there were a lot of witnesses that came in my son-in-law's defense. I didn't want to hear it over the phone, and I raced to his office. When I got there, I saw Luna sitting by the front desk, with a nasty bruise on her left cheek. The sheriff came to me and told me that according to all the witnesses, Jocelyn's ex purposely bumped into Roberto as he and Luna left the coffee shop. An argument started and Roberto tried to de-escalate the situation. Another man appeared and shoved Roberto, and Luna shoved that man and Jocelyn's ex back, prompting Jocelyn's ex to smack Luna, resulting in Roberto placing the 2 men in the hospital. The sheriff is not pressing charges, but he had to inform Roberto's commander. After being released, Roberto had to leave for his 13-hour drive to his base. Immediately, Luna was blaming herself for pushing Jocelyn's ex. Jocelyn is trying to be there for her, but is blaming herself for this entire situation. Mary Soul is surprisingly there for both of them. And the topping of this shit sandwich came in the other day. A woman, who is 6 months pregnant, came to my shop. She asked for my name, and when I saw her, she told me that she was my cousin's fiancée, which took me by complete surprise. My cousin has leukemia and has been trying to reach out to me, Luna, and Mary Soul to make penance. I told her to leave, but she refused. She asked for me and Luna to get tested, to see if we're a match to donate bone marrow. She burst into tears, telling me that she can't have her baby grow up without a father. I told her that she will be doing her child a favor. She slapped me, and said that my cousin was completely honest with her. She knows everything that he has done, but she needs him to be in their child's life. And again begged me to get tested. I could pretty much guarantee I'll be a match, because that's my freaking luck. When I went back to my office, I opened up my cousin's letter. I was expecting to read a plea for mercy, for me to save his life. Instead, it was a letter confessing everything he has done. How while growing up, he looked up to me, loved me, but when I began rebelling and joined a gang, he hated me for the pain I put on our grandmother. I took everything for granted. And even though I always had his back, and scolded him to make sure he stayed in school, he saw me as a hypocrite, because I never took my own advice. Me taking Mary Soul away was the straw that broke the camel's back. He didn't expect me to actually try to make my life better. When I got stabbed and arrested, he saw that as divine intervention, and admitted despite her telling him no, he had to have her. He placed in the letter that because of him, the woman he loved was broken. He ruined his daughter, and destroyed the only man who loved him unconditionally. He also placed in the letter that if his fiancée ever comes to see me, telling me that he was sick. It's true. He is sick, but he doesn't want me or Luna to get tested. This is the path he chose, and the outcome will be his. He ended the letter profusely apologizing to all of us. I saw my pastor soon after, venting everything, and he compared me to Job. This is ironic because out of all the biblical tales, I hated the book of Job. My pastor told me that everyone struggles like Job, some more than others. But it teaches us to comfort those who suffer, and how we become better people through adversity. This morning I went to the hospital. The benefit of a small town is that everyone knows everyone's business. Without asking, the nurse escorted me to Jocelyn's ex's room, where I sat there waiting for him to wake up. He was shocked to see me. I had a conversation with him, and even though his jaw was wired shut, he completely understood the man I will become.
If he ever crossed my family again.
I forgot how easily it was to become someone so dark. A part of me that's dark and rotten. But for my family, it's a simple choice to make. And as of this moment, I am sitting in the cancer ward, just typing this long tirade on my phone, thinking about getting myself tested to see if I am a match. Wondering, why must we always be tested? Why must we constantly endure? Why must there be people who want to ruin everything?
I've always believed that some people are just naturals at getting pain thrust into their lives. And frankly, having read everything you ever posted here, if you aren't one, I'd hate to see someone that is. I don't know what to tell you about your cousin. Is it the right thing to do to get tested? Yes. Does she have the right to ask you for help? Yes. Do you have every right in the world to tell his fiancée to never darken your door again? Yes. Do you have the right to cut a hole in a lawn chair and use it to shit on your cousin's grave? Oh, yeah. I think, at this point, you need to worry about your immediate family. Your wife and son. Luna has Roberto, and frankly, I think she and him should seriously consider moving and living together in base housing. Get her away from all the drama and problems, even if it's for a while. Marisol, more or less, has your wife's brother. She can lean on him for a bit, but you need to worry about your wife and son. Oh, also, are charges being pressed against Jocelyn's ex and his friend? If not, why not?
It's different over here, especially since her ex is part of the problem now. And you do not want a US soldier locked up in a reservation jail. Pressing charges on Jocelyn's ex and his friend gives them the right to also press charges on Roberto. So they allowed bygones to be bygones. That happens a lot over here. Including the sheriff, we have a total of 10 officers. And then you have the reservation and their police. A member of the council gave us their word that Jocelyn's ex will never bother us ever again. I have my doubts, but my father-in-law told me that their word is more valuable than gold. I'll take his word for it, but I'm still going to keep my guard up. Just in case.
My brother, I'm very happy to see how things are coming up to all of you, especially for Marisol and your brother-in-law. And trust me, Jocelyn's ex will be a thing of the past in no time. As for your cousin, maybe you forgive him, but I'm not sure Luna and Marisol did. Think long and hard about how damaging it could be for you all while healing, then trying to re-establish any contact with him or help him.
I got myself tested and I found out the day before yesterday that I am a match. I'm only considering helping him. I will never forgive him. And I personally will hate him until my dying breath. Yet, I cannot stop thinking about his pregnant fiancée who came from Puerto Rico and begged me to help him for her baby. I already spoke to my family about this issue. Luna and Marisol wanted him to suffer a painful death. However, they said it was my decision. Jocelyn told me she cannot comprehend what was going through my mind right now. But she will stand by whatever choice I will make.
I say it's a testament to you, good sir, that Marisol and Luna want him to suffer, but they respect you so damn much. They ultimately leave the decision to you. I don't envy you for the choice you have to make, but my God, you will have my respect no matter what you decide. Did Roberto suffer any consequences from his command? God bless you and your ever-growing family.
He got 45 days of extra duties, but he said it was worth it. Hello everyone, I would like to thank you. Even some of the haters and naysayers. Right now, I'm sitting on the balcony by my hotel room, Spoke to my wife and kids a few hours ago. I missed them. 2 hours ago, I buried my cousin. And I was the only person at his funeral, and I was the only person who attended his wake. I tried to donate my marrow to him. When I told everyone what I was going to do, Luna was shocked. Jocelyn was proud of me for taking the high road, and Mary Soul understood. She told me despite all of the cruel things I have done in my youth, I was never a killer. I went through a series of blood work to make sure I could do it, and even flew to Puerto Rico back in November to personally tell him. When I saw him in that bed, he looked so frail and smaller. He struggled to smile when he saw me. Thought I was there to forgive him in his last moments. But I told him I wasn't there for that I was there to help him. I told him I was a match and came with the intention to donate. He laughed at me and shook his head. He refused. I told him that he needed to stop being a coward and be a father to that child his fiancée was having. He told me that he was too far gone and that, at this point, a donation would not work. He's going to die. And he was okay with it. I spoke to his doctors and they confirmed. My cousin then told me that it's all done. His fiancée emptied his savings, cleaned out his house, and disappeared. He said that it was what he deserved. I didn't disagree with him. We soon sat there awkwardly for a few hours in silence, watching television. I didn't know why I went back the following day, just to do the same. And repeated it for the rest of the week. No words. Just the two of us watching TV. When I got back, I told Luna what happened and she hugged me tightly, asking me if I was all right, and I nodded. Thanksgiving came and went. I went back in December for a week doing the same thing, sitting in silence while watching TV. On Christmas, Roberto paid me what he owed on the trailer. I didn't expect it. He and Luna then told me that they were going to move to the base. I knew I was supposed to be happy for them, but I cried. I didn't want her to move away. I just got her back and I know it was selfish on my behalf. But I wanted her just a little bit longer and she cried as well, promising me that she would visit as much as she could, and I didn't want to let her go. But I understood in the end. On New Year's Eve, my brother-in-law proposed to Mary Soul and she said yes. I thought they were moving too fast, but Mary Soul said she put her life on hold long enough and needed to be happy. And then she asked me if I could give her away. I agreed and we all got drunk. A week and a half ago, I went back to Puerto Rico, visited my cousin and sat down to watch TV. He looked at me and apologized for being a shit person. I looked at him and told him that he was lucky he was dying. Otherwise I would pop him in the mouth. That made him laugh and he said he wouldn't doubt it. And that comment made me laugh. He died the following day. We were watching TV and he told me that he was going to take a nap. A nap he never woke up from. No one else showed up at his wake, and as he was buried, I was the only one there. And as angry as I was at that little fucker, I couldn't stop crying as they lowered his casket into the ground. All I could think about was all the times I protected him. The time I taught him how to tie his shoes. Helping him with his cursive. Teaching him how to play handball. Teaching him how to drive. Taking him to his first R-rated movie. Every moment of happiness I had with this man flooded. And none of the messed up crap he did to me. Just all of these good memories came in and I couldn't understand why. I just stood there, silently crying as they poured dirt over him. I'm in this hotel now, and the burden I had in my chest for so long feels like it's gone. And I'm so confused. Therapy didn't help it. Anger management, meeting Jocelyn. Neither did getting my daughter back. Every positive aspect that happened didn't remove that burden in my chest. But spending time with that man, in his final moments, took away that burden. Took away that anger, and I do not know why or how.
I won't lie. I cannot say I'm not happy he is dead, because I am. He might be family and you made your peace with yourself and him in the end. But people like him deserve to only have one person attend their funeral, and karma truly hit him where he deserved. Good riddance. He was the last piece of the puzzle that you needed to solve to move on and be finally at peace. Your daughter is yours, no matter what, and her family is yours, and your ex-wife found her happiness and the two of you made your peace. Honestly, I still feel bad for Marisol, but also have reservations on her despite knowing she was a victim in the end. I am truly happy that your life blossomed the way it did, and I am glad you can finally live without that burden. I cannot say it won't come back to you later on, like when you sit for a while and think about it. But that's life, right? I'm only 27 and have a lot of life to live. Today, ironically, is the birthday of my grandmother who took her own life last summer. 2 weeks ago, I had to make the choice to put my dog down. Her name was Luna. I have a lot of anger and sorrow in my heart, and your story gives me hope that perhaps, with time, that can be healed. I'm not sure though. Well, I send you so many blessings, and I hope all of your babies, including Luna's kiddos, are healthy and loved.
Your body and mind got the closure it needed. At the end of the day, it seemed like all of the anger you've previously mentioned all came back to him. You guys had a bittersweet ending. He's your cousin, but he's your brother first. And that hurt is pure and deep. You've had a couple chaotic years, but I think you're finally ready to move on to bigger and better things. I'm sorry for your loss, but congratulations for making it this far. It'll be better from this point on, I just know it.
I think you did the best thing possible. In the end, you were the better man for being willing to help him. Then, when you were told the marrow wouldn't help, you could have left, but you stayed with him and visited him. You were there for him till the end, proving with every second you were there exactly how much of a better person you are compared to how low he was. And while I'm only a stranger, I'm too proud of you for taking the high road and being with him, and staying so he had someone at his funeral. As for the release from the anger, it's because you know he can't wreak any more havoc on you now. He was a shadow always lurking behind you, and you were always waiting for his next move, for him to appear and cause trouble. Because he's gone, that anticipation is gone. There's no reason to be angry anymore. The problem died. Next, because if your mind works anything like mine does, do not feel guilty for mourning him. Despite the a-hole he was, there is plenty to mourn. There are the good memories between you two, as well as mourning the what could have been if things could have been different. Mourn that you can no longer feel the fight and rage towards him. You lost something, whether that is a cousin or an enemy. You're allowed to mourn everything you lost when he died. For Luna and Marisol, they are creating new chapters of their own. If Luna is ready to move away from you, she's definitely growing and healing from where she was when you first began these posts, which is wonderful for her, but I can understand it can be heart-wrenching to you, because in a way, you're losing her again. Your Luna isn't going to be a short walk away to say hello to anymore. The last time a separation like this happened, it was on very bad terms. This is going to give you some bad flashback feelings and trigger you to think you're losing her. Just remember, she will always be your little girl. She loves you. And this time, the moving away is the good kind, the little girl growing up and moving away kind. I would argue as well Marisol might be going a little fast on the getting married part, but I'd be calling the kettle black. Because I married my wife just as quickly as she is to your brother-in-law. She too is healing and growing, just like Luna. It's scary to see someone who was hurt and broken making these very big choices, without some shred of doubt and worry crawling in. But she also has her husband to be watching out for her, and I doubt Jocelyn would let her brother enter a marriage she believed was doomed without saying something. If she thinks things will be okay for the both of them, I would trust in her. I very much hope you all find the peace your souls need and deserve. I hope maybe now this chapter of your lives can close, and a beautiful new beginning can start for everyone. I pray if you update again, it's with news of how well everyone is doing. Much love.
That brings us to the end. This story took a lot of time before I could present it to you, so apologies for the later upload, friends. What would you advise OP? Let us know in the comments. More like this on my channel. Thank you for staying till the end. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode. See you in the next one.